to be okay with it?
I think so. And I'm going to see, can't I pin myself so that way? There we go. I don't know if I like this pin thing. I want to unpin that. Okay. Go to here. Tonight we're talking about the leadership class 24. It's called self-control. Having self-control. Now, I have a question for you. This is a very, very, very complicated one. When you have a baby and you want them to go, and they want to, in order to get from going potty in their diaper to a potty chair, what is required? Stickers and dinosaur self-control. One who does not have self-control pees and poops in their pants. And it's funny because they even will, like, as they're becoming aware of the self-control, before they finally get self-control, they know when it's coming because that's when they go hide. And so when my kids were toddlers and they were hiding behind the curtain, I knew what was happening. So under the table? Oh, yes. So in order for us, God tells us that we are to have self-control. We are to control our urges. But if we don't have self-control, can God use us? Why not?
Because we're uncontrollable.
Okay, we're uncontrollable. That's true. So why can't God use us? We don't have discipline?
Not trustworthy.
Not trustworthy?
Calling on one for something bigger than themselves.
Or sin.
When we're sinning, when we're not. Yeah. What happens to our testimony when we're out of control? We say, I'm a follower of Christ, you should listen to what I have to say, but then our lives are out of control. What does that do for our testimony?
Makes us look dumb.
Ruins it. So we're going, well, why don't I have influence on these individuals? Well, do you have self-control? It's always a good question to come back to. Because God can't use you because he doesn't want you to influence people. Because if you're influencing people, saying, well, you can live a Christian life out of control, is that what God desires? So therefore, if we want to have influence on people, we need to have self-control. And as in all areas of our lives, lots of times people will think about this in pornography. You need to have self-control. We need to have self-control with our emotions. We need to have self-control with how we eat. That's the one I struggle with. It's in all areas of our lives. Typically, the ones that we tend to think about are the ones we struggle with. So whatever that is that came to your mind when you thought self-control was probably the one that you're like, yes, I know. I know what it is. And what's that? Patience? That's a good one to have. You need a self-control on that one. Well, let's go ahead and look at self-control. Talking when you shouldn't be. So trying to be the center of attention. That's just the truth. Moving on. Number one, self-control is the key to winning in life. Self-control is the key to winning in life. Wow, Colin, look at that. I got those glares like in a perfect spot. They're on each side. So it doesn't block it out tonight. This is the key. Self-control is the key to being able to love others, the key to and love them properly. Self-control is the key to anger. Self-control helps your flesh become a servant to you and not your master. So on my phone, funny thing is I wasn't actually thinking about bringing this up, but I will now that I said that. On my phone, I have a widget, and one of my widgets on the very top is right here. It says, "Food is not my master; it's fuel for my body." I read that every single day, even though I know what it says before I read it. I remind myself. Often I'll read it several different times. So I keep telling myself, "Food is not my master; it's fuel for my body." Because I want myself. What's that? You can change it whatever you want. But I want my body, my mind to be the master of what I'm eating and what I'm doing with it. Not my body deciding that it's going to be the master. So for each of us, that may be a struggle that we're all going to have to work with and say, okay, what is it that I need to control? Let's go ahead and look at 1 Corinthians here. 1 Corinthians 9:24-7. Do you not know that those who run in a race those who run in a race all run? You guys recognize this, right? Yeah. But only one receives a prize. Run in such a way that you may win. And everyone who competes in the games exercises, what's that word? Self-control in all things. And what kind of things? All things, okay? They then do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we an imperishable. Therefore, I run in such a way as not without aim. I box in such a way as not beating the air. But I buffet my body and make it a slave, lest possibly, after I have preached to others, I myself should be disqualified. So I am making my body a slave to me, not the master. And so that takes a lot of work because I don't want to be disqualified. Now, the funny thing is, there are things that that I don't want to do because it'll disqualify me from being a pastor. So one of the things that I'm aware of is that some pastors will get themselves in trouble emotionally and put themselves in a very vulnerable position and then commit adultery. And once they do that, they are disqualified. And it's really interesting because there was a period of time through most of history, if a pastor ever committed adultery, they lost their position as a pastor and was not redeemed. You could not get it back. But somewhere within the last 100 years, we're like, no, that shouldn't be really the case. And I disagree with that because that is a hard qualification to be a pastor. Maybe they could be involved in leadership of a church in some way, be a deacon or service and ministry, but not to be the pastor again. As a one that you mess that up. So I want to make sure that I have self-control because I don't want to mess up. I don't want to lose my kids. I don't want to lose my wife. I don't want to lose the ministry position I have. So that is a very good incentive for me to be, okay, make the wise choice. That's what this class is all about. It is about us needing self-control because the desire is that we would all have an increase in our influence. Going back to lesson one was about us having influence on the world around us. In fact, lesson one, number one, let's see if you guys know this. Everything rises and falls on leadership, okay? And all leadership is earned from God and from people who are leading. So remember, he who gives us leadership. Number 5 says authority is sovereignty, is an extension of God's power, God's love for his sovereignty to men who have earned it. And you earn it with self-control. So let's go ahead and look at number 2. There are many forces fighting to control our life. There are many forces fighting to control our life. People, the devil, the world, and flesh. Now, we do not live in a vacuum. I mean, I guess some people do. They're in outer space in a satellite, but even then it has pressurized air. So technically they're not in a vacuum. Well, we can say we all live in a vacuum because we're on a big ball of dirt with air around us, but everything's a vacuum outside of it. So that is total rabbit trail. Don't worry about it. I'm just talking about, I'm just going into my scientific nerdiness, but not even really making sense. I was like, where are you going with this? Rabbit trail, okay? Ooh, look, okay, so we do not live in a vacuum. We live in a world with people. Oftentimes, one of the biggest struggles that we'll face is that we want to please people because we do not want to be different. So therefore, we look for ways to please people, and it is fighting for control in our lives. So people would like to control you and tell you what you should or shouldn't do. And there's a lot of that in our world. We also have the devil, who has influences on us as well, and who's convinced most of society that he really doesn't exist or he's not that big of a deal. And we make them into like little fantasy character stories and use it's entertaining and good for him. There's different mechanics that the devil uses to influence us, and that is he talks to you, and he does. Maybe it's not the devil himself, but it is a principality, and so therefore he influences us by talking to us, and that often sounds like self-talk.
I think some of it is even in advertising.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I'm going to get to that in a little bit. I'll get into that about some of the things, the way which the mind works. So we pretend that he's not there, and he pretends like he's not really there, but he is there, and he talks to us and influences us. The problem that we always face, I think I brought this up in this class, is that there's 4 people who speak to us. There's ourselves, we speak to ourselves. The world speaks to us. Yep. Satan speaks to us. God speaks to us. Problem is all 4 of those voices sound exactly the same. But usually the ones that are screaming are usually the world and the devil. So that helps. God doesn't usually typically yell. So we need to be aware that he's there and he's working to get at us. Now, what advantage does the devil have over everything else that can attack us?
He wants to make it seem like the thing, but
Yeah, he does do that.
he's a bad guy.
Yeah, he does. This is good. That's definitely what's another advantage that he might have.
He's on her.
Okay, yes.
Only God will have to. Hold it.
Okay,
It's the sin influence.
yeah.
That he, I guess, influences our life with, puts it in front of us,
He controls.
makes our trust real to us, yeah.
So if you, how about this? If you were stuck in a position where you had made a decision and you saw this big, gnarly, black, goopy creature twisted up 15 foot tall going, come this way, commit adultery, it's good. Would you listen to that? Why?
That's freaky.
Because it's freaky. Can you see it? Right? Satan is not visible to us. So therefore, one of his biggest strengths that he has, the advantages, is that we can't see him. If we could, it'd be a whole lot easier to be like, no. That is no, I'm not listening to you. And when he does try to make himself visible, he often appears like an angel, and he's misleads.
I'm pretty.
The next one is the world. The world is definitely an influence. It tries to convince us to do what is cool, what is right. We live in a world where tolerance has become the number one thing. Not obedience to God, but tolerance. And we have started to create our own God in our life, and that is that, well, what's right for you may be right for me, but it may not be right for me, but it's right for you, so go ahead and do it. And so therefore we have tolerance has become the highest pinnacle of what we should value. And those values change. It's interesting because we'll see that value won't last forever, but it is right now. Post-millennial world, you see it changing. I'm not post-millennial. Yeah, that doesn't seem like the right word. Colin, are you unmuting? Do you know the word I'm looking for in my brain? No. Do you?
I mean, do you mind saying that again?
There's a type of thinking that was really popular and is starting to fade right now, and I want to call it post-millennial, but that doesn't seem like the right word. I'll tell you what it is. It is in the past. See, tolerance right now is the number one thing, but what preceded tolerance was this idea that there was no absolutes. The absolute was that there was no absolutes. Your truth may not be the same as my truth. My son said something today, this morning, or this evening at the dinner table. I think we're talking about like Star Wars or something, and I don't remember exactly what it was. And he says, well, that's your opinion. I said, well, you're allowed to have a different opinion. You're just wrong. And he goes, you can't say opinions are wrong. I said, yeah, you can say that opinions are wrong all the time. People have an opinion on, does God exist? And they say, no, he doesn't exist. Well, that's their opinion. Guess what? They're wrong. So you can have opinions that are wrong. And I said, in your opinion, your idea about your opinion that there can't be right or wrong was wrong. So pretty much. What's that?
So we call it spirit of the age.
Yes. Yes, spirit of the age. Yes, and that changes. Finally, the flesh, our body hates spiritual things. So one of the things I struggle with is prayer. I have since I've started it, getting better at it, slowly making headway. Mainly because I have it on my calendar now for every single day that I'm going to pray at a specific particular time. And I have a book, a 3-ring binder that has everybody's names that goes to church or has visited a church, and I pray for them. That helps me kind of with my prayers. And I've done some other things that I have, like things that help me, prayer cheat sheet that I have that gives me some ideas as I'm praying. But my body absolutely hates it. And I was talking to D. Duke about it. I said, what is up with this? I said, I even have a hard time getting people to come to corporate prayer. He says, oh, prayer. He says, that is spiritual warfare. You're going to be fighting about that one for a long time. It took a long time for it to really become an influence in their church. He's like, so that's normal because Satan hates prayer. It's going to be the one thing he's going to try to stop from us. My body loves things like food, anger, and lust. That's what it craves. That's what the flesh craves. And so therefore, there is a battle. Let's look at the next verse here, Romans 7:14-21. For we know that the law is spiritual, but I am of the flesh, sold into bondage to sin. For that which I am doing, I do not understand. For that I am not practicing what I would like to do, but I am doing the very thing I hate. So this is Paul saying, look, the things I want to do, I'm not doing them. But the things I hate, those are the things I'm doing. Okay, and at this point in time, he's really, really struggling with this. But if I do the very things I do not wish to do, I agree with the law and confessing that is good. So now no longer am I the one doing it, but sin which indwells me. For I know that nothing good dwells in me. Nothing good. My flesh is good, and nothing good comes from my flesh. That is, my flesh. For the wishing is present in me, but doing of the good is not. So the good things aren't coming from his flesh. It is coming from the Spirit. For the good that I wish, I do not do. I practice the very evil that I do not wish. So he is just talking about this internal struggle. And it's why we memorized the verse, for we walk in the flesh, we do not war according to the flesh, for weapons of warfare are not of the flesh, but divinely powerful for the destruction of fortresses. We are taking speculation and every lofty thought captive to the obedience of Christ Jesus. And that's from 2 Corinthians. But if I'm doing the very thing I do not wish, I am no longer one doing it, but sin which dwells in me. So he's just talking about that spiritual battle. The spirit side of him is like, no, what truly him. Because remember, when we become a follower of Christ, the true us is no longer this body, but it's the spirit, which is now being indwelt with God. So that's not truly us, but it's not strong yet. We haven't learned how to control our body. The body is what is doing this. He knows the body is eventually going to get eliminated, and we'll get a new body that's perfectly suitable for heaven. I find in the principles that evil is present in me, the one who wishes to do good. So let me look back here real quick. I will. So essentially, I write down that sin is like a virus. It takes over us, and we need self-control, and that would be the antibody to this virus so that we can learn how to control it. Number 3, people who exercise self-control are given great responsibility from God. People who exercise self-control are given great responsibility from God.
By the way, I think that word that you were looking for earlier was moral relativism.
Thank you. That's exactly the word I was looking for. Yes, moral relativism. It's popular, but it's losing its popularity because now they're saying, no, you can't have that. It depends on where you're going to school. Colleges are usually a little bit behind, about 10 years behind. Universities are a little bit further. So now what we're seeing is switching over to tolerance, forms of tolerance. So, and it changes every 25 years. There'll be something different next time. So self-control. When are we most likely going to sin? I know we talked about this in this group. What time of day? When you're tired. That's right. That is when we're most likely going to sin. When you're tired. That's why my kids should never wake me up. Because I'm tired and I'm cranky and I'll yell at them to get out of my room. I'm not telling mom that. So if you want to live another day, don't tell her that. Okay.
Tell her that.
I'll hold it. You know what? Maybe I'll be like, hey, do the dishes. And you're like, I don't want to do the dishes. I'll tell your mom what I said. So
I'll tell her something.
now, okay, number 4. God can trust a person with self-control to do the right thing. God can trust a person with self-control to do the right thing. How many of you guys could bench press 200 pounds? Artist like, yeah.
I can't even lift my own body weight after that.
How do you get to bench pressing 200 pounds? Start low. Gradual work takes time. Self-control takes time. Discipline.
Illegal drugs.
Illegal drugs. Steroids. Yeah, that's not really good on guys' bodies and not even good on girls' bodies, so don't want to do that. No shortcut works. Kid, I'm sorry. If it did, I would have done it. So, a person with self-control will give their spouses a great deal of security. A person with self-control will give their spouses a great deal of security. One of the things I taught in the leadership class for the men, needs of your wife, and that is, if a man comes home and they're angry one night and not the next, and they flip-flop and you never know what they're going to be or how long they're going to be happy, it creates a volatile situation which creates insecurity, and it makes it really hard for someone to submit to someone when they don't know what they're going to be like. And so therefore they're going to stop submitting because in order to protect themselves. So and I think it's the number one major killer to relationships is anger. Number one thing that destroys a relationship is fighting and anger. A person with self-control will raise healthy children. Again, they will understand because there's security in the house. So a person with self-control will raise healthy children. I do try to compliment my kids whenever I can, as often as I can, and about specific things. Not just, wow, you're a good kid. Wow, you're a good kid is very vague. So I would rather hit something up like compliment what they're growing in. For example, Abigail's reading of the Bible has significantly increased since last year. Because I don't even think she knew where her Bible was at or what a Bible looked like outside of seeing one at the church. And so she is really, yeah, and you never.
Bible.
And
I still have it.
yeah, and how many times did you open it?
For one, it was too small words.
Okay, so her reading has really increased. So my compliment to her is that she's reading the Bible and getting better at it. She's also, also encourage her on her own reading. Like she would never even open up a book a year ago, and now Abigail's reading books. Well, she's listening, and you read some. But you know what? One time we couldn't get the audio book, so she wanted the physical book so she could listen to it and read along with it, which is what I do. And I really find that to be helpful because, because it is. So be specific and in the compliments with kids, and that'll help them. Never, never, never say, I couldn't help myself. Never, never say, I couldn't help myself. Never say, I'm tired. I'm tired. If you tell yourself you're tired, guess what?
You end up tired.
You will be tired.
Seriously.
If you say, I couldn't help myself, well, what are you telling yourself?
It's okay.
It's okay. I couldn't help myself. I just couldn't stop myself from doing that. And your brain will amplify what you say and then therefore make an excuse and then give you permission to do it again. The very thing you hate to do, you'll end up doing more. And remember, all of us need to give an account for everything we say and we do at the judgment seat of Christ. So there's some motivation. So never ever say, I couldn't help myself. That is now,
The devil made you do it.
the devil made me do it. Yeah, that's excuses, and that doesn't work either.
Flip Wilson, huh?
So to combat this, we confess all sin quickly. We confess all sin quickly. I did it. I did it, God. Unlike Adam, when God confronted Adam, what does God do? He blames. He didn't blame the devil. First he said, God, it's this woman you gave me. So he blamed God and he blamed the woman. Throw them both under the bus. It's their fault. Nice. And you know how well that works in marriage? How does that work if your husband says something like that to you? Yeah. Doesn't go real well. I tried to throw my wife under the bus and I end up in a lot more trouble. So I'm just teasing. I haven't thrown her under the bus because I'm not going to have that on recording. So examine your life regularly and ruthlessly. Examine your life regularly and ruthlessly. Look for weaknesses in your life, tendencies. If you've noticed that you continue to have a particular sin or some type of conflict in your life, write it out and start looking for the patterns to determine what is going on so that you know how to combat it later. So you need to examine your life ruthlessly. Here's a good one. Ask your spouse for a grade with no defensiveness. Yep. Who knows you probably better than anyone else other than God and yourself? Your spouse. So ask your spouse for a grade with no defensiveness.
What did I do wrong?
You're on C. Just go with that.
Oh, you didn't have a highlighted.
Okay, yeah, I didn't highlight that first one. Sorry. I don't usually tell my wife, hey, honey, tell me everything that's wrong with me, because then that's too big of a blank check. So the question for me is, hey, honey, what's one thing you think I could work on? One thing. And I'll go from there. No more than that. You caught up, Abs?
No, I can't spell very well.
Ask your spouse for a grade with no defensiveness.
Can you spell defensively?
DEFENSIVENESS. Just fake it. It's only for you anyways. D, present your life to Jesus daily. You guys all have heard me say that prayer a million times. Today, Lord, I present myself to you, Father, as Lord of my life. I obey your commands in love. That is my presentation daily to Jesus. I'll obey your commands in love. I'll read your word. I'll be devoted to prayer. I'll love my wife. I'll teach your commandments to my children when I sit at home, when I walk along the road, when I lie down, when I get up. Today I'll take every thought captive to obedience of Christ. Alone I can do none of these things. As ask your spirit to fill me, and I receive your favor. So I'm presenting myself every single day. Get counsel and input from others. Get counsel and input from others. These are people who know you, not just random people. My goodness, I was reading some of those advice columns the other day, and they gave some of the worst advice ever. I was like, that is dumb. I don't remember. I just remember thinking it was really incredibly stupid, and it was. Always be an accountability group. Okay, that word right there, you go and underline that, circle that, star it, give it a kiss, whatever you want to do to it. Always be in an accountability group. This is an accountability group. 28 weeks teaches you how to be accountable to each other. I am less concerned with the scoring right now and more concerned with you guys holding each other accountable. So when we're done with this, we're going to move you guys into accountability groups. We do have them. And when you fall down, they help lift you up. They encourage you and push you. Okay. G, faithfully practice the basic disciplines of the Christian life. Faithfully practice the basic disciplines of the Christian life. You might be thinking, man, this class is moving fast today. That was on Bill's request. Okay, you guys know, I don't think you have to fill it out on this one. Without looking at your paper, put your hands over it real quick. What are the basic disciplines of the Christian life? Start naming some off to me. Reading the Bible. Prayer.
Studying.
What was it? That was technically not in there, though that is very good. Actually, that one's not in there. Confession, which I would say self-examination confession. So that covers that. We did talk about prayer, like corporate prayer, but that falls all under corporate prayer.
Giving.
Okay, giving, that's good. What do we do on Sundays? Singing, we call that praise or worship. Yeah, there you go, worshiping. So we have that's covered on prayer. The next one is, what are you doing right now?
Seeking wisdom?
What's that?
Wisdom?
Okay, yeah, you are seeking wisdom. That is one of them. That's the last one. And then this one right here is we're gathered together. Okay, so that is the basic disciplines. You do those things, and you challenge each other to memorize scripture. You're reading your work, reading God's Bible. You're studying it. It's really interesting. Someone I was talking to someone the other day, and they're like, yeah, this individual who knew the Bible, they read through the Bible twice in their life from cover to cover. And I thought, I do that in every year and a half. I was like, I didn't say that, but I was like, that doesn't impress me because I do that all the time. But I was like, well, that was really good because though that my standards are way up here, in America, how often does that happen? We don't. We don't read through the Bible, even though that was a cultural norm for many years. And so that he did it twice, not just once, was really good. I remember the first time I ever did it, I was actually a kid. I don't know if it counts because it was one of those comic book Bibles that I read cover to cover. So I count it because I was like 10. So, yeah. That was the first time the Bible made sense. Yeah. Well, actually, I had a different one. You got the more modern version. I had an older one that the drawings looked a lot cheesier. Those were made in the 70s. Because the channel is being blocked. Okay, let's go ahead and close in prayer. Just so that we have it on the video, in case anybody watches it and they're like, what verse are we on? We are on Ephesians 5:25. We'll start the recording. Goodbye, recording.